What if I told you one of the biggest rock stars of the 1970s learned music from the man who invented modern recording, then walked away at the exact moment he had everything? Before the hits, before the fame, Steve Miller's story starts in a quiet living room in Milwaukee. Late 1940s. A young kid sits and watches as a man casually plays guitar across from him. That man is Les Paul. Not just a great guitarist, the Les Paul, the pioneer of multi-track recording, the mind behind the solid body electric guitar, the reason modern music sounds the way it does. And he wasn't visiting, he was family, Steve Miller's godfather. That meant Miller didn't learn music the normal way. There were no beginner lessons, no slow build-up. From the start, he was exposed to precision, to innovation, to the idea that music wasn't just something you played, it was something you engineered. Les Paul showed him that the studio was an instrument, that sound could be shaped, layered, controlled. Every note had intention. Most artists take years to figure that out. Miller started there. But what if I told you that wasn't even the most important part? Because when his family moved to Dallas, everything changed. If Les Paul was about control, T-Bone Walker was about feel. Walker was a blues legend, but more than that, he was a performer. He didn't just stand still and play, he moved. He turned guitar into a spectacle, playing behind his head, dropping into splits mid-song, making every performance unforgettable. And now, Miller had both sides of music, precision and chaos, discipline and soul. That combination is rare. Most artists lean one way or the other. Miller didn't have to choose. He understood both before he even had a career. And that's why, when he finally stepped into the real world of music, he wasn't just another hopeful musician. He was prepared. But preparation doesn't protect you from reality. After a short time in college, Miller made a decision. He left. No backup plan, no safety net. Chicago, 1964. This wasn't a friendly scene. Chicago blues clubs were brutal. You either earned respect or you were ignored. There was no middle ground. Miller played alongside names like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. These were legends, and their audiences expected the same level from anyone on stage. If you were fake, they knew instantly, and they let you know. This wasn't practice, this was pressure. But Miller held his own. Night after night, he proved he belonged. Not because of who he knew, but because he could actually play. And just when he had built that credibility, he walked away. Not because he failed, but because he saw something bigger. San Francisco, 1966. A completely different world. Psychedelic music, counterculture, a new sound taking over America. And this is where everything starts to shift. Because now, Miller had the skill, the discipline, and the experience. But what he didn't have yet was success. And that's where things start to get complicated. San Francisco in the mid-1960s wasn't just a city, it was a movement. Music was changing fast. Psychedelic rock was everywhere. Bands weren't just playing songs anymore, they were experimenting, stretching tracks out, breaking structure, chasing something new. And Steve Miller stepped right into it. In 1966, he formed what would become the Steve Miller Band. On paper, everything looked perfect. He had the background, the skill, the connections, even the look of a rising star. And then came the deal. In 1967, Capitol Records gave him something almost unheard of at the time, an unusually large advance. The label believed in him. They were betting that his mix of blues credibility and studio precision would turn into something big. This was it, the moment where everything was supposed to take off. But it didn't. In early 1968, the band released their debut album, Children of the Future. Critics liked it. The musicians respected it. It had all the right pieces, but the charts told a different story. The album barely made an impact, peaking far down the Billboard rankings. It didn't match the expectations, not even close. So they tried again. Later that same year, they released Sailor. This time, there was some movement. The album performed better. It reached the top 30. Songs like Living in the USA started getting radio play. Finally, a sign of progress. But here's the problem. Better wasn't enough. The label had invested heavily. They expected results, not slow growth, not potential. They wanted hits, and pressure started building fast. Behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Band members came and went. Key players left. The lineup kept changing. What looked stable from the outside was actually a revolving door, and Miller was stuck in the middle of it. He was burning through money, watching the advance disappear, trying to keep the band together while expectations kept rising. This is where most artists break, because now the question isn't about creativity anymore. It's about survival. The experimental, free-flowing style of psychedelic rock suddenly became a problem. Long songs, complex structures. It didn't translate to radio, and radio is what paid the bills. So Miller faced a decision: stick to the artistic path or change everything. And here's where it gets wild. He chose to pivot, not slowly, not halfway, completely. By the early 1970s, Miller started moving away from long, experimental tracks and towards something tighter, simpler, more direct. Songs built for radio, hooks that stuck instantly, structures that didn't waste time. This wasn't selling out, this was strategy. He was using everything Les Paul had taught him: efficiency, precision, understanding exactly what made a song work. And in 1973, it finally paid off. A single release, simple, smooth, instantly memorable. The Joker. At first, it didn't explode overnight. It climbed slowly, steady.
Play my music in the sun.
Building momentum week after week. And then, in early 1974, it hit #1. Just like that, everything changed. After years of pressure, instability, and near failure, Steve Miller finally had a breakthrough. But what if I told you this was only the beginning? Because once he figured out the formula, he didn't just repeat it, he mastered it. Once the Joker hit #1, everything snapped into place. Years of pressure disappeared almost overnight. The debt, the uncertainty, the revolving band members, it all faded into the background. Because now, Steve Miller understood the system, and more importantly, he knew how to win. But here's the part most people overlook. A lot of artists get one big hit and spend the rest of their careers chasing it. Miller didn't chase it, he built a machine. From the mid-1970s onward, the Steve Miller Band became something different. Not just a band, but a hit factory. And it starts with one album, Fly Like an Eagle. This wasn't just another release, this was a statement.
Like an eagle to the sea.
The sound was clean, focused. Every track felt intentional. No wasted space, no long detours. The title track, Fly Like an Eagle, didn't even hit #1, but it didn't matter. It was everywhere. Radio stations played it constantly. It became part of the culture. But then came the knockout, Rockin' Me. Short, catchy, impossible to ignore. It shot straight to #1. And just like that, Miller wasn't just successful, he was dominant. The album went multi-platinum, millions of copies sold. The band moved from theaters to arenas. But wait, this next part changes everything. Because instead of slowing down, he doubled down. 1 year later, Book of Dreams. Most artists would have taken time after a massive album like Fly Like an Eagle. Not Miller. He came back immediately, and the hits didn't just continue, they stacked. Jet Airliner, Jungle Love, Swingtown. One after another, these songs flooded radio. At this point, you couldn't avoid the Steve Miller Band even if you tried. Turn on your car. There they were. Walk into a bar. There they were. House party, shopping mall, anywhere with speakers, same story. But what made this run different wasn't just the number of hits, it was how he made them. While other bands in the 1970s were known for excess, long studio sessions, massive budgets, constant partying, Miller did the opposite. He worked fast, efficient, focused. He didn't spend weeks chasing one perfect sound. He didn't get lost in endless experimentation. He came in, recorded what worked, and moved on. That mindset, something he learned decades earlier from Les Paul, kept his costs low and his output high. While other bands were drowning in debt, Miller was stacking success. And then came the moment that proved just how big this had become. A compilation album. Greatest Hits 1974 to 78. Now normally, greatest hits albums are something artists release later in their careers. a way to look back. But Miller released his at the peak, and it exploded. Over 15 million copies sold. Diamond certification. To put that into perspective, that's not just successful. That's one of the best-selling albums of all time. You thought that was big? Try this. Those songs didn't just sell records. They became part of everyday life. They weren't just hits anymore. They were background music for an entire generation. From 1973 to 1978, the numbers were almost unreal. Gold records, multi-platinum albums, constant radio dominance. Miller had done what almost no one could do. He balanced credibility and commercial success. But here's the problem. The same system that made him was starting to wear him down. Because behind all the success, something else was building. Frustration. And it was about to change everything. By the early 1980s, Steve Miller had nothing left to prove. He had the hits, the money, the audience, the kind of catalog that guaranteed his music would outlive the decade. So when he released Abracadabra in 1982, it felt like just another victory lap. And at first, it was.
When I think I'm gonna get away, I hear those words that you...
The title track, Abracadabra, took off fast. It climbed charts around the world, hitting #1 in multiple countries, and landing near the top in the United States. Another hit, another success. But what if I told you this was actually the beginning of the end? Because behind the scenes, Miller was done. Not with music, with the industry. He had spent years inside it, dealing with labels, contracts, expectations, watching how decisions were made, who controlled what. And he didn't like what he saw. He started calling it out openly, saying the business was full of gangsters and crooks. Not quietly, not carefully, directly. And here's where it gets wild. Most artists feel that way at some point. Almost none of them act on it. Miller did. Right after Abracadabra, something strange happened. The momentum stopped. Not slowly, immediately. In 1982, the band played dozens of shows, a normal touring year. In 1983, one show. 1984, one show. That's not a slowdown, that's a shutdown. And then came the follow-up album, Italian X-Rays. On paper, it should have continued the success. He still had the name, the audience, the recognition, but the album barely made a dent. It landed far down the charts. No major hits, no real push. From the outside, it looked like a collapse, like the momentum had finally run out. But wait, this next part changes everything. Because this wasn't failure, it was intentional. Miller had fulfilled his obligations, delivered the music, but he refused to play the game that came with it. No heavy promotion, no media push, no adapting to MTV, which was now dominating the music world. And that decision had consequences. In the 1980s, visibility was everything. If you weren't on TV, you didn't exist. So almost overnight, he disappeared. Fans didn't understand. One minute, his songs were everywhere. The next, silence. No big tours, no chart presence, no constant radio push for new material. It felt like he had vanished. And in a way, he had. But not because he couldn't keep going, because he chose not to. And that's what made it so unusual. Most artists get pushed out. Miller walked away. But what if I told you? That decision cost him more than just attention. Because once you step away from the machine, getting back in isn't easy. And the longer you stay out, the faster everything moves on without you. What followed wasn't a comeback. It was a disappearance. After Italian X-Rays failed to gain traction, the Steve Miller Band entered a period most fans barely noticed happening. Because there was nothing to notice. The late 1980s came and went without a major return. No chart-dominating singles, no massive tours, no attempt to reclaim the spotlight. Instead, Miller shifted focus. He went back to what he originally loved, the blues. In 1986, he released Living in the 20th Century. Then in 1988, Born to Be Blue. These weren't designed for radio. They weren't chasing trends. They were personal projects, rooted in the style he grew up on. And they stayed mostly under the radar. No big chart success, no cultural moment, just quiet releases. And for a lot of artists, this is where the story fades out. But here's the interesting part. Even while he was absent, his music wasn't. Turn on classic rock radio, and you'd still hear the Joker. Drive down the highway, and Fly Like an Eagle would come on. Walk into a store, a bar, a party. Those songs never left. So while his presence disappeared, his catalog didn't. And that created a strange gap. Fans still loved the music, still heard it everywhere, but there was nothing new to connect it to. No evolution, no next chapter, just the same hits, playing on repeat. And over time, people started to assume something, that he was done, retired, finished. Another artist frozen in a specific era. But that wasn't entirely true, because Miller wasn't inactive, he was just selective. In 1993, he released Wide River. It brought him back into view, but not in a way that reshaped his career.
Never been one, run like a river that will always be.
The industry had changed. Music trends had shifted. The landscape was different now, and Miller wasn't chasing it. He had already seen where that path led, and he wasn't interested in going back. But here's the irony. By stepping away, he may have protected something most artists lose, his peak. Think about it. A lot of artists stay too long. They keep releasing music, trying to stay relevant, and slowly dilute what made them special. Miller didn't. His golden era, from the Joker through greatest hits, remained untouched. No overexposure, no decline played out in real time. Just a clean legacy. And over the years, that decision started to look less like a retreat and more like control. Because while trends came and went, his music stayed consistent, timeless. And then something unexpected happened. Decades later, a new generation found it. Streaming platforms brought his catalog back into focus. Billions of plays. Songs from the 1970s performing like they were still current. And even more surprising, modern artists started pulling from it, sampling it, referencing it, reintroducing it to audiences who had never heard it before. The sound didn't feel old. It still worked. Which raises a bigger question. Was stepping away actually the smartest move he ever made? Because by refusing to follow the industry, he may have outlasted it. But wait, this next part changes everything. Because after years of silence, Miller didn't just return to the spotlight. He used it to say exactly what he thought. Decades after stepping away, Steve Miller returned to the spotlight in a way no one expected. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. For most artists, this is the moment, the celebration, the final stamp of approval. But Miller didn't treat it that way. Instead of gratitude, he brought criticism. And here's where it gets wild. Standing on one of the biggest stages in music, he openly questioned the system itself. He called out the lack of transparency, the way artists were treated, the business behind the honor. He didn't hold back. He even asked, what does this place actually do besides promote itself? It was uncomfortable, unexpected, and completely on brand. Because this wasn't new. This was the same mindset that made him walk away in the first place. The same frustration with control, with contracts, with the machinery behind the music. But what if I told you this moment mattered more than any award? Because it confirmed something fans had suspected for years. Steve Miller didn't just survive the industry. He avoided becoming part of it. He learned from legends, built a catalog that defined an era, reached the top, and then stepped back before the system could wear him down. And today, the results speak for themselves. Billions of streams, tens of millions of records sold. Songs like The Joker, Fly Like an Eagle, and Rockin' Me, still playing everywhere. Not as
You're the cutest thing I ever did see. Keeps on taking me away.
not as nostalgia, as staples, music that never really left. That's the difference. Most artists chase relevance. Miller created something that didn't need it, and that's why his story stands out. He didn't fade away. He chose when to leave. And in doing that, he made sure he never really disappeared at all.